In this lesson we'll have a quick look at multiplication and division of fractions. Again, these are things which you've met before in the broad general education, so we'll go through these fairly quickly. Now, before we can multiply or divide fractions, they must be written as either proper or improper fractions and not mixed numbers. Now that's not a problem in this example or this example where these are proper fractions, but in this example here we can see it's a mixed number multiplied by a mixed number. So there'll be another step I'll need to do here at the start to turn both of these mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now the rule we use for multiplying fractions is quite straightforward. It's probably one of the easiest things to do. It's simply top times top, bottom times bottom. So let's look at example A here. I've got 2/3 times 4/5. So top times top, that's 2 times 4, gives us 8. So that's equal to 8 over, and bottom times bottom, that's 3 times 5, and that's at 8/15. All I would do there is I would check, can I simplify 8 over 15? And the answer in this case is no, so that's us finished. In the next example, I'm going to show you two different ways. Now, as long as you can do the first of these two methods, that's fine. But sometimes it's useful to have an extra method you can use. So let's go through 5/12 times 3/4. We're going to start with top times top, so that's 5 times 3 is equal to 15. And bottom times bottom, so that's 12 times 4, which is 48. Now what we're looking for is we're saying, can we simplify 15 over 48? So is there a number that divides exactly into 15 and exactly into 48? Now the answer to that is yes. These are both in my 3 times table. So 3 goes into 15 5 times, so 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 48 divided by 3 is 16. So that will simplify right down to 5/16. Now, as I said, I'll do this question twice because that simplification there, 15 over 48, it's quite big numbers there and it's quite hard to actually simplify that. What we can do, if I write this out again, 5 over 12 times 3/4, is actually I can do some simplification at the start. Now, looking at these two fractions, 5/12 doesn't simplify. There's no number other than 1 that goes into 5 and into 12. And 3/4, again, is already a fraction in its simplest form. We can't simplify 3/4 anymore. What I've got to look for is opportunities to simplify across these two fractions though. So, can I simplify 5 over 4? Again, the answer is no. And then can I simplify 3 over 12? Now, I can simplify 3 over 12. So if you imagine the 3 and the 12 here, what's the number that divides exactly into 12 and exactly into 3? And it's the highest number that goes into both. So I can divide both those numbers by 3. So let's take the top one, 3 divided by 3, that would simplify down to 1. And 12 divided by 3, that would simplify down to 4. So 3/12 simplifies to 1 over 4. What I can then do is do the top times top, bottom times bottom. And that's going to give me 5 times 1 is 5. And then bottom times bottom, that's 4 times 4, which gives me 16. So by doing the simplification up at the start here, across the fractions, it means I haven't needed to simplify it down here. So the numbers I've dealt with have been easier. In other words, it's easier to simplify 3/12 than it is to simplify 15/48. Now, both of these examples, or both of these methods, are completely valid. So if you're unsure about this method and you can use this first method here, then that's fine. Just use this first method. It may mean you have bigger numbers to simplify, but remember we can often do simplification in parts. We'll now have a look at example C here. And as we said at the start, before we can multiply or divide fractions, they must be written as proper or improper fractions and not mixed numbers. So straight away here I should recognise I can't multiply these two things together until I've got rid of the mixed numbers. So we're going to use what we did in our previous lesson. We're going to use that little algorithm. So 3 multiplied by 4 is 12. Add on another 1, that's 13. So that changes to 13/4. And that's multiplied by, let's see, we've got 2 times 3, which is 6. Add on 1 is 7. So that becomes 7/3. So we're now at the stage where we can do top times top. So 13 times 7. Now if you can't do that in your head, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just down at the side, 13 multiplied by 7. 7 3s are 21, so carry the 2, and 7 1s are 7, plus 2 is 9, that's 91. and we can then put that at the top here. There are other mental strategies you can use there, or you may just know the answer to that. As I said though, absolutely nothing wrong with just sticking a little bit of working up at the side here for calculations with larger numbers. On the bottom part, bottom times bottom, that's 4 times 3, so that's going to give me 12. Now, the first thing I need to check, does 91 over 12 simplify? So I might think about factors of 12 here. So 2 won't go into 91, 3 won't go into 91 because it goes into 90, 4, well this would have to be an even number, so no. 6, again, this would have to be an even number, and 12, again, this would have to be an even number. So there's no way of simplifying 91 over 12. What I can then move on to do is I can change it if I want to 7 and 7/12. Although, as we've said before, both of these answers here are absolutely fine. I could leave it like this quite happily, but you may want to change it into 7 and 7/12 to mark your answers. For division by a fraction, we have another rule. So if we're dividing one fraction by another, the rule is we invert the second fraction and then multiply instead. So if we're faced with something like division by a over b, all we do on the next line is change that division by a over b to a multiplication by b over a. Now this is most easily kind of demonstrated using these two examples here. So we'll take example A there, where we have 3/5 being divided by 2/3. Now, the first fraction is going to remain exactly the same, so that's going to stay as 3/5. What we're going to be doing is taking the second fraction, which is 2/3, and we're going to be inverting it. In other words, turning it upside down. We're going to take the 3 and put it at the top, and we're going to take the 2 and put it at the bottom. So that's going to change from 2/3 to 3/2, or 3 over 2. The other thing we change is when we do that, we change this division sign into a multiplication sign. So that becomes 3/5 multiplied by 3 over 2. Once we get to that stage, it just becomes a multiplication problem. So top times top, 3 times 3 is 9, 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, we'll look at the second one. The same thing is going to apply here as did for multiplication. We can't deal with mixed numbers. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of these mixed numbers and change them into improper fractions. So with the 2 1/4 first, that's 2 multiplied by 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so that becomes 9 over 4, and that's divided by, and again, 3 multiplied by 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, so that becomes 7 over 2, and then we're going to use our division rule. So we're going to take this second fraction here, and we're going to invert it, and we're going to change this to a multiplication sign. Remember, the first fraction doesn't change. We always keep the first fraction exactly the same. So that's going to remain as 9 over 4. We're going to invert the second fraction. So it's going to change from 7 over 2 to 2 over 7. And we're going to change this division symbol here to a multiplication. Once we've done that, nice and easy, we can just do top times top, which is 9 times 2 is 18. And bottom times bottom, 4 times 7 is 28. In this example, we do actually have a bit of simplification that can be done. So 18 and 28, both top and bottom they're both in the 2 times table. So we can divide both of them by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 28 divided by 2 is 14, and that's it then in its simplest form. So just a reminder, for division, all we do is we invert the second fraction and we change it into a multiplication instead. So division by a over b just becomes multiplication by b over a.